Brooklyn is often described as a borough of New York City, but that phrase can make it sound smaller than it really is. In reality, Brooklyn is also Kings County, the most populous county in New York State, and one of the densest urban places in the United States. More than 2.7 million people lived there at the time of the 2020 census. If Brooklyn had never joined New York City and still stood alone, it would rank among the largest cities in America, behind only the rest of New York City, Los Angeles, and Chicago. That scale is part of what makes Brooklyn unusual. It is not just a neighborhood, not just an outer borough, and not simply a backdrop for Manhattan. It is a vast urban world with its own history, identity, institutions, and contradictions. Geographically, Brooklyn sits at the western end of Long Island. It shares a land border with Queens, while water separates it from Manhattan and Staten Island. The East River lies between Brooklyn and Manhattan. Though the name is misleading, it is actually a tidal strait connecting New York Harbor with Long Island Sound. Across that water, bridges and tunnels have made Brooklyn inseparable from the wider city. The Brooklyn Bridge, completed in the 19th century, became one of the most famous symbols of that connection. Farther south, the Verrazano Narrows Bridge links Brooklyn to Staten Island across the entrance to New York Harbor. These crossings do more than move cars, trains, cyclists, and pedestrians. They show how Brooklyn's identity has always been shaped by connection to Long Island, to Manhattan, to the harbor, and to the wider world. Brooklyn's name reaches back to the Dutch colonial era. It comes from Breukelen, a town in the Netherlands, and reflects the period when Dutch settlers established communities in what was then New Netherland. In the 17th century, the area was a cluster of towns, farms, waterways, and settlements rather than a single unified city. Kings County itself was one of the original counties created under British rule in 1683, after the English had taken control of the colony. That early history still matters because Brooklyn developed with a layered identity. Dutch place names, British colonial administration, indigenous displacement, maritime trade, and later waves of immigration all became part of the borough's foundation. Long before Brooklyn became synonymous with brownstones, artists, basketball, or coffee shops, it was a strategic piece of land facing one of the most important natural harbors in North America. By the 19th century, Brooklyn had transformed from scattered settlements into a major city in its own right. Its position on New York Harbor helped turn it into a busy port and industrial center. Shipyards, warehouses, factories, ferry terminals, and residential districts expanded rapidly. Manhattan may have been across the river, but Brooklyn was not simply its suburb. It had its own government, economy, civic pride, and political debates. The growth of ferries and later the Brooklyn Bridge intensified the relationship between the two cities, making daily movement easier and commerce more integrated. But integration did not erase rivalry. Many Brooklyn residents saw their city as independent, substantial, and culturally distinct. That independent city mindset remains one reason Brooklyn still feels different from other parts of New York, even more than a century after consolidation. The turning point came on January 1, 1898, when Brooklyn was consolidated into the newly expanded city of Greater New York. This was not a simple administrative adjustment. It followed years of political campaigning, public relations battles, and intense disagreement. Supporters argued that a unified city would be stronger, more efficient, and better able to compete on the global stage. Opponents feared that Brooklyn would lose control over its own future and become overshadowed by Manhattan. In the end, Brooklyn joined Manhattan, Queens, the Bronx, and Staten Island in the five-borough structure known today. Some critics called it the Great Mistake of 1898, a phrase that captures how painful the decision felt to many Brooklynites. Yet consolidation also helped create modern New York City as a global metropolis, with Brooklyn as one of its essential pillars. Brooklyn's density is central to understanding daily life there. Kings County has a land area of just over 69 square miles, yet it contains a population larger than many entire states' major cities. That produces a landscape of apartment buildings, row houses, commercial avenues, subway stations, schools, parks, and religious institutions packed closely together. Density can create pressure, crowded trains, expensive housing, limited space, and competition for resources. But it also creates energy. Walk a few blocks in Brooklyn and the environment can shift dramatically, from residential side streets to busy shopping corridors, from waterfront views to industrial zones, from historic houses to new towers. Brooklyn's density is not uniform, it is a mosaic. The borough works because millions of people live near one another while maintaining highly localized neighborhood identities. One of Brooklyn's defining features is its cultural diversity. The borough has long been shaped by immigration, migration, and ethnic enclaves. Neighborhoods developed around language, religion, food, work, and family networks. Jewish communities are especially significant, with Jews forming around a fifth of Brooklyn's population, making the borough one of the world's major centers of Jewish culture. But Brooklyn's cultural map also includes Caribbean, Russian, Chinese, Italian, Arab, African American, Latino, South Asian, Polish, and many other communities. These identities are not just demographic categories. They appear in storefront signs, synagogues, churches, mosques, bakeries, music, street festivals, schools, and everyday routines. Brooklyn's motto, from early modern Dutch, is "In unity there is strength." In practice, the borough's unity has often come from many distinct communities sharing the same urban space. Brooklyn's neighborhoods are famous because they feel almost like separate cities. Williamsburg, Crown Heights, Park Slope, Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brighton Beach, Sunset Park, Dumbo, Bay Ridge, Bushwick, Flatbush, and many others each carry different histories and reputations. Some are associated with brownstone blocks and tree-lined streets. Others are known for immigrant businesses, public housing, industrial spaces, beaches, nightlife, or religious life. This neighborhood structure is crucial because Brooklyn's identity is local before it is borough-wide. People often describe where they are from within Brooklyn before simply saying Brooklyn. That reflects how the borough grew over time, not as a blank grid filled evenly, but as a network of communities shaped by transit lines, class, ethnicity, waterfront access, zoning, and historical waves of development. Brooklyn is one name, but it contains many urban stories. Education and institutions also help give Brooklyn its independent weight. The borough is home to major public and private colleges, including Brooklyn College, Medgar Evers College, the New York City College of Technology, Pratt Institute, Long Island University, and the NYU Tandon School of Engineering. These institutions train artists, engineers, teachers, designers, nurses, entrepreneurs, and public servants. They also anchor neighborhoods and influence local economies. Pratt, for example, is closely associated with art, architecture, and design, while NYU Tandon connects Brooklyn to engineering and technology. Higher education matters in Brooklyn because the borough is not only residential. It is a place where culture, labor, research, design, and professional life intersect. These institutions help explain why parts of Brooklyn became fertile ground for creative industries, startups, and new forms of urban work in the 21st century. Brooklyn's image changed dramatically in the early 21st century. In popular culture, it became associated with artists, independent music, food trends, design studios, renovated lofts, and what was often called hipster culture. Former industrial areas and older working-class neighborhoods attracted new residents, businesses, and investment. This helped fuel a renaissance in restaurants, nightlife, entrepreneurship, technology startups, postmodern art, and design. But the same transformation also brought serious tensions. As demand rose, housing prices climbed sharply. Longtime residents in many areas faced displacement pressures, and the borough became a national symbol of gentrification. The story is not simply Old Brooklyn versus New Brooklyn. It is a complex process involving capital, zoning, transit access, race, class, global real estate markets, and the question of who gets to remain in a place after it becomes desirable. Housing affordability is one of Brooklyn's most urgent issues. The borough's popularity and limited land have pushed rents and home prices beyond the reach of many working families. In response, some new developments are required to include affordable housing units, but that does not fully solve the problem. Affordable for whom is often the central question. A unit considered affordable by official formulas may still be too expensive for lower-income residents in the surrounding neighborhood. At the same time, Brooklyn needs new housing because demand is intense and overcrowding is real. This creates a difficult urban dilemma. Restricting development can preserve neighborhood character but worsen scarcity, while new development can add homes but accelerate change and raise fears of displacement. Brooklyn's future depends heavily on how it navigates this tension. Sports and entertainment add another layer to Brooklyn's modern identity. The Barclays Center, opened in 2012, became home to the Brooklyn Nets and the New York Liberty. Its arrival marked the return of major professional sports branding to Brooklyn, decades after the Brooklyn Dodgers left for Los Angeles in 1957. For many residents, the arena symbolized ambition and visibility. For others, it raised concerns about development, traffic, public subsidies, and neighborhood disruption. That debate mirrors Brooklyn itself. Pride and skepticism often exist side by side. The borough wants recognition but resists being remade only for outsiders. It embraces culture but worries about commercialization. It values growth but fears exclusion. Brooklyn's power lies in that tension. It is historic and modern, local and global, proudly distinct yet inseparable from New York City. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.